brave new world of Bitcoin. So, all right. Cross process on the Lumix G9. All right. So, Bitcoin prophecy. The big one is so I envision a glorious future of like essentially money without borders, right? Without global remittances, blah blah. And this is a big deal because like Bitcoin is a $450 trillion opportunity in terms of long store of value. I mean, Saylor predicts that the market cap of Bitcoin will hit 280 trillion in 21 years, or 12 years, I don't remember. I agree, maybe bigger. And Cash App, Bitcoin baked into it, right? And so I like this future where you have the option, right? You could use your Bitcoin as a long-term store of value, or you could use it to buy a pizza if you want to, right? It's up to you. And so it's interesting because, I mean, tax codes are tricky, but let us assume that your paycheck was just in Bitcoin, and it would be the ultimate fungible liquid asset where, you know, you could decide to keep it, to trade it, whatevs, right? And this becomes interesting because, yeah, you have the option. I mean, already today, right? Like, okay, so where gets to solve the money issue? Let's say my mom lives in Korea and I want to send her $100,000, right? It's far easier to send her one Bitcoin, right? Rather than going through a traditional wire house, which is very annoying. And also, like, I mean, probably won't happen, but, you know, if I could just zap my mom a bunch of money on Bitcoin Lightning Network, what is, right? And then she could just use her phone to touch and tap and pay for stuff, right? That would be very good. So, you don't have to deal with the whole like Korean won stuff, right? And yeah, this would be such a big deal because it's effective in all countries, right? Just not like Korea, but in Cambodia, Vietnam, etc. And so the opportunity is, yeah, like it just frees up so much more economic opportunity. Like, so for example, here in Vietnam, they use something called ABA Pay, which is like, I guess, a bank from Canada, and they use QRs on the phone to pay for stuff, right? And for locals, it's awesome, right? But to an American foreigner, I'm like, I use Apple Pay and I use Visa for everything. I'm like, I can't be bothered, you know, opening up some sort of new financial account, right? And apparently already in China, nobody really uses paper currency. Everyone uses what? Alipay, WePay, Chat Pay, something, right? And so commerce is a path to peace and prosperity for all. And the truth is, like, everyone wants their kid to have a good future, and nobody wants their kids to be put in some sort of senseless war and get killed, whatever, right? And fortunately right now, the New World Order is based on the economy. So it's more of an economic war than anything. I don't think we'll see any bodies. I don't think we'll see any nukes or anything like that. It's just going to be more like difficulty for individuals, right? So, for example, like the US Treasury bonds, the 10-year bonds, whatever, right? It's like dipping very, very low, like below 4.2 something percent. And the reason why that's a problem is these are big macro factors in which, you know, people are losing faith in the US dollar, the currency. Scott Bassett is trying to do his best. I think everyone knows that the path moving forward is like a US dollar stable coin thing, right? And, you know, already like the tokenization of stocks and stuff is happening, right? And the thing that was really shocking to me is what Trump said. He slapped on a 25% tariff on any sort of iPhone that's made outside of the US, including India. So that's kind of a big deal because, is America or is Apple, Tim Cook really gonna shift production? Like, okay, shout out, oh my God, props to Trump. Like, wow, I'm like both shocked and amazed and impressed that like he actually had the balls to carry through with that idea. And I think it's going to be like a short-term pain for a long-term gain, because like what if one day some kid from Detroit could get a good paying job building iPhones in a factory. It's going to be like the Henry Ford 2.0, right? Versus outsourcing to China. And I think I'm 37, right? When I was growing up and in college, whatever, right? The gospel was free trade. Like, obviously trade without borders is good for everybody. But I think what I'm starting to realize is, in fact, it was only useful to those who are profiting from asymmetric advantages of political power. And this is actually a big one too. Politics and political power is far more important than economic power, because if you're Trump, the most powerful man on the planet, if you could slap on 1,000% import tax on foreign-made iPhones, and I think he has the power to do that, right? Then it doesn't matter if you own 1 trillion shares of Apple, your wealth suddenly evaporates. Like, I'm currently still here in Phnom Penh. I have a bunch of friends who work at Apple and live across the headquarters. I'm like, I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm like, yeah, I would definitely, if you're an Apple employee, I would definitely sell your Apple stock and buy MSTR instead, or buy Bitcoin, whatever, right? The reason why is, I think, okay, so it's good to be optimistic. So, Trump will pull back the tariffs and stuff. Like, yeah, maybe, but I think the way that the economy and reality works, it's kind of a one-way ratchet, which means when you slap on a tariff, right? Like a big tariff, more likely than not, it will continue to persist and or be reduced. Maybe then the foreign iPhone tax is 15%, whatever it is, right? And I do think that, if you're invested in the traditional stocks, the stock market, whatever's, right? Even Saylor tweeted, again, there are no tariffs on Bitcoin, and that is facts. You can't tariff cyberspace, which is great. And also the beauty of Bitcoin, right? So I had a thought. The internet has been so ugly for so long because of ads, trackers, blah, blahs, right? So can you imagine a fresh new internet that has no ads, which is actually the base layer itself is money? Like, the internet itself is money, and you can own a piece of the internet. Like, that's a big thought. Read The Art of the Deal by Trump. It's actually a very enjoyable read, very easy, very fun. And yeah, I think the way this goes down is, a bunch of people is gonna, there'll be no loss of human lives, but there'll be loss of economic monies and powers, right? So, China's probably gonna go through a great recession. I think for the common American person, after this, it'll actually be good for America, is my personal thought. And even if you're an elite individual, right, in America, you might take a small pay cut or 20%, 25% hit, but because these new policies will protect US dollar dominance, then as a consequence, like even though superficially up front your paycheck is gonna look 25% less, that's gonna be better than like 100% dollar debasement where your paycheck has been like liquidated or inflated to nothing, right? So once again, it's better to have a policy that negates your salary 25% upfront, but your money is still worth something, rather than business as usual, and then your money gets inflated down eventually 80%, right? It's like, like it's painful, like it's pain, right? But short-term pain for certain long-term gain and pleasure is actually a very wise payoff, right? It's kind of, and I think this is a hard thing. You got to kind of like remarket, or you got to rebrand this, right? Is that it's like a good pain. When you use at the gym, you like crush it, right? The funny thing is, if you're a bodybuilder, you're actually trying to get sore. Once you get trained enough, you don't get sore anymore, and actually you start to feel like you didn't do a good workout. It's kind of the funny thing, right? Is that like, if you don't feel sore the next day, you don't feel enough pain, you actually don't feel good, right? And Nietzsche even has an interesting theory about pain, is that pain and pleasure are kind of one and the same. That pleasure is in fact like intermittent pain, which is an interesting theory. So then the idea is that pleasure is not a real concept, but pain is. But pain is not necessarily a bad thing, it's just environmental feedback and stressors, right? Like I was even thinking, right? Like, let's say you lift a heavy ass weight. How does your body like activate hormones for you to start building muscle, get stronger? It certainly must trigger some sort of hormonal pathway for your balls to start secreting more testosterone and increase your appetite to eat more meat. And as a consequence, you get bigger and stronger. But if you're in an environment where there's lack of food, your appetite actually gets less because the organism doesn't want to starve itself to death. Like, if you're super skinny and lean, living in a war zone, you're probably better off than somebody who's like really fat, who needs a lot of food, yet cannot obtain it from their environment, right? So I think thinking biologically is a good idea. But anyways, am I the last bullish person enough? Shout out to LA Dojer, Gladiator. You are not bullish enough.